Hello.
Welcome back.
You may remember us from our exploits on this, which we recently did a restoration on.
Love that.
Not one single bit of it, but it is nice at the end of it to have a car that works. In this series that we're about to kick off though, we're going to kick it up a notch.
With a car that will never work in a country that's never dry, that has no roof or body, or boot, or cigarette lighter, or heater, really of any creature comforts of any sort.
I've not really thought this one through, have I? In this series, we're building a car from scratch.
Yep. What can go wrong?
So my plan here is to scratch build a car. I've been wanting to do this for years, so now that the TVR is finished and I have space, I've decided to get a kick on with it.
It's the donor car for this.
Right, so this is all based on a book that was written by Ron Champion many moons ago that implied that you could build a sports car for £250. Now, that was based on using Mark II Escort parts, and I don't think you can buy a single part from Mark II Escort now for 250 quid. It got later updated by Haynes, the same people that make manuals that tell you loads of stuff about cars apart from how to fix them, and it was then how to build a sports car on a budget. All of these focus around a Lotus 7. These are very popular entry-level kit cars. You can buy catering kits off the shelf, Westfields, you name it. This kit involves me scratch building it. That means taking all the steel, welding it all up, and making it without really any off-the-shelf parts at all. The only off-the-shelf parts that I'm going to use is a donor engine and gearbox and diff. And that comes from one of these.
It might be quite hard to tell what this actually is.
Well, I can tell you what it used to be.
Let's go to there. That's a good place to start. And we can then go to here. And that should give you the rest of the information you need. So this is
the venerable Mazda MX5. This is the NB variety. That means Mark II, or specifically a Mark 2.5.
And I wonder why would this particular example have met its end as a road car?
That's right, rust. So what we're going to do here is build this car for a budget of £1,000 British.
I don't know about you folks in Hazel County, but I think you regret that.
That's everything, apart from obviously going the IVA, whatever route we're going to do to get it registered on the road. That can be quite expensive. This is getting a running car for £1,000. This so far has cost me £0. This is a scrap car. I managed to get it here and get it off the owner's driveway, which therefore means that it's cost me nothing.
Does it start?
Does it start? More or less. Low-cost mechanical test, take one. It's running a wee bit rough, it's making a wee bit of smoke, but even if this entire engine assembly needs to be replaced, that's alright, because the template's there for me to build the car with. What we're going to do first of all is take everything that we're going to need from this car that's going into the new car. Now, that would be simple, a case of just buzz gun everything off, hope for the best and throw all in the new car. However, having done this before and failed at it, there are a number of things we're going to consider for this. Even taking this apart, there's a process to follow. When we're finished and this body's out of the way, I still must have a turnkey, startable, running, driving driveline.
And now comes the question I was asking. So, we're going to try and keep this thing running while we disassemble it. If I was doing this, bearing in mind I am a moron, I would take the engine out, take the front suspension apart, take the exhaust out, the driveline, the diff, drive shafts, the rear hubs, etc. and reassemble it all somewhere else. Apparently, we're not going to do that. We're going to just lift the body off like we did with the TVR, apart from the fact that this is not a chassis with an independent body. Is it a unibody they call it?
Yep. So yeah, this will lift off though with ease, because what it does have underneath all of that body is a front suspension subframe, a rear suspension subframe, and a torque bar that links all of that driveline together. So yeah, I would still maintain that although it's slightly different from TVR, the process is still the same. Unbolt everything, lift the body up, and take it all out.
I think a grinder would be way more fun than a buzz gun.
Aye, it would, but it's not getting ground. And there's going to be a process to this, I've told you that.
What about hammers? Can I use a hammer?
You can absolutely use a hammer,
Okay.
as long as you're not damaging anything in heat.
There they are. Mechanical Hodor's tools. The two top left ones. You've got to pump it up and don't you know.
Step one to disassembling your car.
That's it.
Get a mountain to put it up in the air for you.
Hold the door
What kind of socket would you like?
So small I can't guess. 10, 12?
10 or 12. What we are currently in the process of doing.
What we're doing here is having great fun. See this? That noise is Need for Speed. It's Grand Theft Auto when you tune a car. That is symbolic of happiness in a garage. There are two things that make me happy. This and this.
So whilst Mechanical Hodor is making lots of noise and funny noises himself down under the car, what I've started to do up top is strip off everything that's going to need to be discarded, basically. So, starting with the coolant system. What we're doing, we're not going to be able to retain this original radiator, so I've disconnected it and I've started to drain it off. Next up, the factory airbox needs to come off, so I've disconnected all that. We are retaining this, however, because there's sensors that will be imperative to making this engine start. So I've just put this to the side and we'll come back to it. Next up, we're just going to start disconnecting other parts of loom, little bits and bobs that are going to come with the car, but need to be removed from the body. So once we get all those loose, we'll be in a position where the engine can drop out. We plan on dropping the engine out with the subframe, so ideally I want to do my line of sight and make sure that nothing's still attached to the body, so that when the engine goes down, it'll go down, not pull anything out. There will need to be loom coming with this afterwards, but we'll dismantle that out from the car and then place it in the engine once we're separated. What is going on? This was meant to be a simple job.
See these? Well, this was a result of me trying to loosen it. You'll notice that that's at a different angle to everything else. It's because the whole thing bent and the captive nut is gone, so that was fun. We've now got this, which you'll see I got off a bit with a gun and some sheer effort. But that's also goosed because Mazda, what is this about? The bloody nut is up here. Why is there another inch?
I think it's for production line to get them in straight. I don't know. Who knows, mate? But fundamentally, we're having fun in the back, and this is the reason why these things end up really cheap, because rust. I mean, rust absolutely.
Let me show you about the rust. Just while we're here, can you get in there? I mean, the view up here is unbelievable.
Oh, nice.
It's absolutely, utterly ruined. Just.
So there's no saving this.
Oh God, no. And that's what the whole car's like. Look, it's not one corner. And this is the dry side, isn't it? The puddle side's the other side. Aye. So, yeah, it's toast.
So assuming that I can get 2 or 3 minutes of chat without noise, I'll explain to you where I am with the loom. We've actually kind of raced ahead a wee bit. My colleague here holding the camera, he has disassembled all of the bolts holding the rear subframe onto the car.
On one side.
So, I mean, I still am. And all the retaining bolts, i.e. the chassis braces that run down the transmission tunnel towards the front. We've also undone all the front subframe bolts, so the engine is now sitting on the jack, and I went round and scoured all the engine for anything that connects it up to the car and disconnected all that. So have a look at the front, you'll see we've got rid of the radiator, all of the front air dam gubbins, all that nonsense is gone. So we are now in a position where the front of the car is ready to drop, with the exception of the brake lines. I'm actually in the process of just chopped one, I'm going to chop them all and drain the fluids out. Then the only things holding the car in after that are fuel lines, which I've still left on simply so that we can test fire the car and make sure we've got all the wiring right, and the battery cable. The battery cable actually goes from the boot onto the torque mount, so it's part of the drive line, just the way it's laced in, and then it comes into the front of the car. So we'll need to pop that out when we're sure we're ready to take the engine and drive line out. Now, onto the wiring loom. As I've said, we have done a bit of a homebrew thing to make sure we're taking all the wiring we need with this. So if you have a look in the car, you'll see that all of the wiring that remains, which is most of the stuff that has fuse box, runs up to the loom, has the key on it, whatnot. I've stripped back everything that's not going to be applicable for what we're using, and I've retained a lot of what is. Now, annoyingly, we've still got a big blue multi-plug here which goes out, contains the ECU loom, pops out here and is part of the engine. We'll disconnect this plug last when we take all the loom out to go with the engine. I've again left it in just so we can test fire the car and run it. I've also taken all of the loom that runs up in through the bulkhead and I've routed it out around the wings. This again allows me to pin out and see what needs to come and what doesn't. And this also runs, again, as I say, with the car in the air in test mode. So just to prove this for the last time, in this complete disassembled state, we should still also have a car that runs. It's not happy about it, it's missing a lot of sensors. it does run. So that's good to know. Okay.
What's going on here then?
That's the engine loom on the engine. We've split it out. We've got the chassis loom back on the chassis. We won't need to disconnect the fuel pump because the fuel pump's an integral part of the body, but we will need to disconnect it at some point, obviously, to come out. One thing I need to do, we have just dropped the back end and we have the slack on it to do this, but we will need to now dislocate the battery and send the positive and negative lead through, because that's currently sitting there. A wee bit stretched, but not the end of the world. So the back wheels, subframe, exhaust, the whole assembly, we've just landed on the ground. We've got the front subframe on an axle stand and the front chassis on 2 axle stands. We're now going to jack the front up, take the axle stand out from the cross member, and then lower the front onto the deck.
Everything you know is in your...
It is truly astonishing just how rusty this car is. You see a lot of it, but I'm looking at a massive hole right now. About 2 inches away from the top mount of the strut tower top. One might say that's structural. How do we know?
Yeah.
I thought about getting married.
But why? You ruin a beautiful section of relationship.
There's a calibrate.
Aye.
Whoa! Do you want to get up a bit more so that we could just get something mega high in the air to suspend the body? Move the jacket away.
What? What? What are we talking about? I wasn't listening.
You. This is what happens when I try to give suggestions.
I was
all
literally
get is
not
pure
paying
ridicule.
attention.
Complete and utter ridicule. Oh, you are a clever aren't you? You might want a jacket first, get some leverage.
Sure, I can take a look. It's just an
It's
easy
just a computer, that's all. Right, just tries it.
Fire up.
That's a challenge, mate.
What? I'm just saying engine it. That's what you idea.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, this is my attempt at juggling.
Why are you juggling?
Because
A single
we
piece of wood.
have been having fun with wood again. Now, I've got, as you can see, we've jumped a wee bit ahead, but we're not fully finished stripping everything we need out of the car. We're at a point where we need to stop and take stock. So the blocks of wood, as you'll see, allow this to now move. So we've jimmied it so we don't need suspension pickups anymore on the top of the wishbone arms, and we can now push this back and forward, giving us a rolling chassis. Pretty trick. So now that we've got a rolling chassis, we need to take everything that remains off of this car, attach it to this chassis as best we can to make sure we've got a startable mule. So we're at a point now where I've got the fuel tank out, sitting over there, obviously purged, vented and not going to cause an explosion.
Because that would be very inconvenient, of course. Oh, did you scratch your bodywork?
Did I? Yeah, I did. So yeah, now we're just going to take the rest of the loom out. I've started at the back, so we've disconnected the fuel pump. I have made a wee error here, I will kind of hold my hands up to this. I didn't think about the brake, the ABS sensors, and I've kind of just chopped them. But I know where the loom is, and the ABS sensors are still on the hub, so we can reconnect them at a later point. It's not going to stop us having to run the car. I just like the idea of having it in case we were going to do ABS on the new car, but there's no guarantees we're even going to need that, so we can come back to it. So all of this loom has now been disconnected. We have taken the front part that was over here, so it's now sitting down here. The part down on the floor is the loom to the rear, which powers up the fuel pump. Again, the vast majority of this we're not going to need, but I'm taking it anyway. Next thing we need to do is take out the other side of the loom that was sitting down here.
To you.
Now, the 10mm I'm needing here is because there are various earth points that clip onto the chassis. So this will possibly cause us some issues when it comes time to test fire this as a mule, because some of these may need to be earthed. So we'll maybe jerry rig up a series of wires that will tie back to the earth post of the battery, should we find that it doesn't start. It's time to lift it all out, but we're not just going to lift it all out and chuck it down because then we lose our reference point. So, like I said, I've tucked this under here because it needs to go to the back of the car. So let's put it onto the back of the car, which is here. Now, front pull loom used to go over here. So again, just over here. Now, need to get rid of this bag of shit, which is easier said than done.
A man is literally at his happiest when he's mumbling and talking to himself.
There's no fuel at the moment, so I just want to see if I can get a crank like putting the battery on. So let's try that.
Is that neutral there?
Which way around is possible?
We have identified many things. Thomas is currently identifying a fuel line.
Rust into my face.
Yep. And then we'll shortly identify petrol into the fuel rail, which will identify kinetic energy on the crankshaft.
It's a hell of a time to be doing this with a hangover, man. Somebody forced alcohol into my face last night. Who could that have been?
I was going to turn the camera around and say that was me, but then I forgot how to work a gimbal. Fire!
It is not actually a project car unless you sit in the project car and do the thing. This is where we're going to leave off the episode for now. We have a fully stripped running mule, and I just need to pair out a bit more wiring just to make sure that it's as lean as it can be, ready to start. That's not particularly interesting, so we're going to cap it here. If you do want to see more updates on this and hopefully a finished car at the end of it, hit subscribe here. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you find this useful, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Yeah, you're spinning both.